This is Moldova, and Russia is trying to topple the government in the country. Now, of course, Putin denies this, saying that it's Europe that's trying to occupy the nation. He's using that as an excuse to build up troops right on the Moldovan border. And now this is where things get complicated. You see, if you look at the map, you realize that Russia actually shares no border with Moldova directly. So how would it actually invade the country? Let's zoom in. You see, this eastern thin strip of land inside Moldova is actually called Transnistria. When USSR collapsed back in the 1990s, local separatists backed by Russian army fought Moldovan forces in 1992. A ceasefire froze the front lines, but Russia never actually left. About 1,500 troops stayed behind, rebranded as peacekeepers. Now, recently, Moldovan Prime Minister has warned that Russia wants to increase that troop deployment to up to 10,000 troops, especially if a more Kremlin-friendly government takes power. Now, you couple that with the fact that over the last few weeks, Russia has been saying that NATO wants to occupy Moldova. It seems like Russia is planning an invasion and setting the groundworks for it. But the invasion might actually be Plan B. Plan A is, of course, taking over the country using the ballot box. That doesn't mean winning in the election fair and square. For Russia, that means disinformation campaigns and, of course, paying people literally right outside the election boxes to vote for the party they want. Let's start with the misinformation campaign because we have undeniable proof. We have on video pro-Russian news channels trying to pay Moldovan citizens to post whatever Russia wants for a flat monthly fee. And this fee is actually very enticing.
Throughout this campaign, the BBC has gone undercover and seen how that disinformation is being spread. We infiltrated a private Telegram channel and after being vetted, attended online lectures on how to become a paid election influencer, along with dozens of other new recruits. Completing the course led to a job offer. In the capital Chisinau, we get instructions to conduct unregistered and illegal opinion polls on the street. The voice in charge is on speakerphone and speaking Russian.
Это тоже компания, где обычные люди гадают, которые за нормальные ценности, за обычную семью, против ЛГБТ, которые хотят строить свое счастье, строить свою жизнь, исходя из того, как они ее видят, а не как навязывает чуждое большинство и чуждая идеология.
We soon move up in the network and are offered more money. This time, the group is told to create fake social media profiles and given instructions on what to put in our posts, like spreading fake news about the current government and President Sandu. We're told we'll be paid around $170 a month, and that money will come from PSB Bank in Moscow. It's owned by the Russian state and under international sanctions, and it's clear posts like this are being seen. While Moldova is home to just over 2 million people, the BBC has identified 90 TikTok accounts that appear to be part of the same network. They were told to post the same messages on the same days as us, and have had 23 million views and more than 860,000 likes. While Russia denies meddling in this campaign, Moldovan intelligence says Russia is spending record sums to fix next week's outcome.
Now, I want to just put things in perspective. $170 a month does not sound like a lot, but it's also something you're being paid just to make fake social media profiles and post what Russia wants you to post. And as if that wasn't easy enough, $170 is actually a lot in a country like Moldova, where people are truly facing a cost of living crisis. Median salary in the country is around $300 to $400. That means $170 is more than half just for making few posts every single day. Now, the election that's happening on Sunday is a parliamentary election, and this is the last major election in Moldova until the end of the decade. So Russia is truly trying to go all in. If the pro-EU coalition wins, they get $2.3 billion from EU support. But of course, their victory will risk provoking Russia, who's kind of building up an army in Transnistria. Now, Russia did try something like this just last year when there was a presidential election going on in the country and a EU referendum. According to Moldovan authorities, Russia spent around $200 million. That's roughly 1% of the GDP of Moldova just to buy the election. In fact, we have footage of Russian agents giving out $5, $10 to people who are in line at the election box or at the election center to vote.
Will you tell me how much they were supposed to pay you?
They said 1,000 rubles.
For voting right?
Yes.
Who promised that?
A man. He left. He said he'd be back, but he still hasn't come.
Who did you have to vote for?
I don't want to say.
What did he say exactly? How were you meant to vote in the referendum?
They said they'd pay 500 rubles. Then here that man said 1,000.
You came from Transnistria?
Yes.
Are there many of you who came here for the money?
Me and her, and then another 3 people are meant to come.
How were you meant to vote? Or just take part?
We voted for who they told us. I don't want to say who for.
For the EU, was it? Yes or no?
That's my business. I won't say.
I mean, you cannot get more overt than that in terms of buying elections. And I can't even imagine what Russia is going to try to do this time when they believe this may be their last chance to influence Moldova before the end of the decade. So the obvious question rises. Why does Russia want such a tiny country so badly? Well, for Kremlin, it's a high leverage price. First of all, geography. Moldova sits between EU members like Romania and war-torn Ukraine. Controlling Moldova, even politically, gives Moscow a buffer on NATO's flank and a pressure point on Ukraine. At the breakaway strip of Transnistria, where Russian troops and a massive old ammo is already sitting, you got instant leverage without actually having to cross the Ukrainian border. Secondly, it's a perfect hybrid war lab. Moldova is small, poor, and polarized. Perfect terrain to win with cash, media manipulation, and legal fronts instead of tanks. If that playbook works here, it can be exported across Europe. And lastly, of course, controlling Moldova would mean Russia can stop it from joining EU. And this is where the big problem starts. You guys remember how I mentioned the EU referendum that was voted on just last year? Well, the referendum passed with a very small majority, just with 52% of the votes. And on top of that, the party that's pro-EU, the PAS party, needs a clear majority to turn this referendum into a reality by joining EU. But right now, they control around 51% of the seats in the parliament. But Moldovan parliament is decided on percentage of the votes each party gets nationwide. That means if the party drops from 51% to, let's say, just 49%, they lose the ability to govern alone. And then you get coalitions, gridlocks, and a government that might be more friendlier to Moscow. That's exactly what Kremlin is hoping for. They're not trying to flip the election and win and get a majority. All they're trying to do is hurt the pro-EU party enough where they don't have a clean majority. Now, Moldova does have a small population, just 2.4 million, if I'm remembering correctly. That means just 10-20,000 votes that Kremlin can sway using their influence could mean the party losing a clear majority. As they say in football, it's the game of inches, and the election is on Sunday. Now, luckily for Moldova and unluckily for Putin, the world is paying attention, and Putin has no one to blame but himself. I don't know about you guys, but I would not have kept up with this election if it wasn't for Russia's invasion of Ukraine that's going on right on the Moldovan border. So, if Putin was not invading Ukraine, he may have an easier time in Moldova, but now that he is invading Ukraine, world is paying attention to what's happening in Eastern Europe. And at UN, Moldova was center of the conversation. Here we had President Zelensky talking about how we have to make sure Moldova doesn't fall under illegal Russian occupation.
Moldova is defending itself again from Russia's interference. We have helping Moldova, and Russia's trying to do to Moldova what Iran once did to Lebanon. And the global response, again, not enough. We have already lost Georgia in Europe. Human rights and the European nature of the state system are only shrinking there. Georgia is dependent on Russia. And for many, many years, Belarus has also been moving toward dependence on Russia. Europe cannot afford to lose Moldova too.
Now, I do want to call something out. I think it was unfair to publicly say at the UN that we have lost Georgia and Europe. In fact, young people who want to join EU in Georgia have been protesting since last October, and I'm sure it was very disheartening for them to hear that. So yeah, Georgia is not lost, but it's not looking good. The pro-Russian party has a lot of power, and they want to kill any hope of Georgia ever joining the EU. Luckily, EU has been helping Moldova make sure their elections are properly conducted. This was the statement just made by EU High Representative and Vice President of the European Commission. Let's listen in.
Today we discussed Russia's war against Ukraine, which has repeatedly spilled over into Moldova as well. Russia has violated Moldovan airspace, used energy as a tool to blackmail you, and meddled with your democracy. Moldova's upcoming parliamentary elections will be a prime target of Moscow's hybrid war. Russia is likely to use a web of cash, content and coercion to try to tilt the vote. The Moldovan people have the right to choose their own future free from interference. That is why we are extending the scope and scale of the EU's partnership mission to boost Moldova's resilience. We have a specialist team on the ground now supporting Moldova address illicit financing around the elections. And we recently deployed a group of experts, a hybrid rapid response team, to support Moldova against the foreign interference. You can rely on EU support to ensure the integrity of your elections.
Now, for Russia, Moldova has been very important for a long time. In fact, back in 2020, we had a Russian document that accidentally got leaked, and it revealed the plan Russia had to destabilize Moldova. Basically, their whole goal was to go after Moldova after they take over Ukraine in 3 days, or whatever the initial plan Putin laid out for this special military operation that's going on. And it's not just Moldova that Russia has been involved in. They have taken over territory in Georgia. We already know what they're doing in Ukraine, and this is basically what Putin wants to do in every single country that he considers under the Russian sphere of influence. This is something we actually talked about with General Ben Hodges when we had him on our podcast. So let's listen to his thoughts.
I think it's in the Russian tradition of wanting to control the countries all around them, this so-called sphere of influence that goes back centuries. I think it probably has some historical origins of wanting buffers against invading Mongolians, for example, that sort of thing. But now, over the last couple of centuries, it becomes some entitlement, a sense of entitlement that Russia gets to, as if this was the 18th century, that they get to make decisions for the countries on their periphery of what those countries can do. I think it's as simple as that. You know, if they can keep Georgia from its attempt to integrate to the West, from joining the EU, same thing in Moldova and other former Soviet republics like Armenia. It also reflects their insecurity. I mean, they know once you get outside of Moscow, and if you're not one of the super wealthy there, it sucks in Russia. I mean, it sucks. A country that has endless amounts of natural resources, you know, everybody there should be wealthy. I mean, there's so much oil and gas and so many other things, but because of the legacies of corruption, instead of everybody there getting dividends like they do in Norway or Canada or some other countries, only a few people get to keep everything, and everyone else is kept in the same squalor that they've had since the beginning. And so it's not in the interest of the Kremlin when you have countries on their border start becoming very prosperous when they join the West. So like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, 3 former Soviet republics, Poland and Romania, former Warsaw Pact countries. You know, now these guys are all, because of membership in the EU, because of the freedoms that are there, and big countries are investing in them. The quality of life right on the border of Russia is significantly better than it is for the average Russian. And so Putin absolutely couldn't bear the idea of Ukraine, who they always thought of as like their little brother or something, and I don't mean that in a friendly, fraternal sort of way, but somebody that they could dominate. Now Ukrainians, society is open, it's much more successful. People are able to use their potential. Countries want to invest in Ukraine. And so you could imagine the Kremlin looking at that and then having to explain to their own people why life sucks so bad in Russia and it's so good in Ukraine. Now that I'm simplifying a little bit, but I think part of this is their insecurity and their own regime survival.
YouTube just dropped a mind-boggling announcement. It is paying creators $64 million per day. Why? Well, because YouTube doesn't have enough creators. That is why you see videos on your homepage that have less than 1,000 views, like this one right here. Now, of course, this doesn't mean that everyone should start a channel. But if you have ever wondered about starting a YouTube channel or a faceless channel, now is a perfect time. YouTube is paying creators millions of dollars every single day, and it's pushing newer and smaller channels now more than ever. But I'm sure you have many questions on how to start and grow a channel. We get questions in our email all the time from some of you guys. That's why we decided to put all our YouTube advice into one YouTube video for completely free. So if you're someone interested in starting your own channel, you can watch that video here on YouTube by clicking the link in the description or card on your screen.